In kendo, it is vital that you have a good sense of space, but this is not easy to acquire. At the beginning of the match, the two contenders stand apart so their shinais do not touch. The space between the starting position and the positions where the sword tips are touching is known as toma. The toma is important because the attacks from here are what affects the strike success at closer range, even though it is not possible to be hit from the toma. When the contenders step towards each other and the tip of the shinai intersects at about 10 to 15 centimeters, the fighting range is called issoku itto. This is the maximum distance at which you can strike an opponent with just one step forward, although it depends on the age, height, and experience of individual contenders. When one steps in a little more, the distance is called chuma. In both party situations and competitions, it is common to move into the position before performing attacking maneuvers. One step further in is the distance known as chikama. It's most dangerous because attacking moves can be performed both by advancing and retreating. When one steps in even further, this range is called tsubazeriai. The correct stance is to have two shinais touching the tsuba with a sword tip pointing towards the opponent. Don't let your shinai touch the opponent's shoulders as it's a foul. It's recommended that you master the proper way to perform the close contact, for it's a good position scoring a ippon. This is the most basic kirikaeshi. It consists of striking the front man and colliding with the opponent, followed by 4 left and right man strikes, while advancing, then 5 retreating, then a front man strike from a safe distance. After 9 more left and right man strikes, finish with a front man strike and move to the opponent's side. A female high school student repeats the same sequence of actions. It's important to carry out all 9 strikes swiftly and in one breath. For children of lower grades, the kirikaeshi can be performed without the taiatari after a first man strike. This left and right men kirikaeshi is fundamental to all of the kirikaeshi techniques. The defender should move backwards and forwards with the attacker to maintain an appropriate distance. It is also important to use wider steps. Make sure to turn the wrist fully with every strike for a correct swing. The defending party received the left and right men kirikaeshi with a shinai. Make sure to strike the correct point of the side men each time, even though the strikes are being blocked. The defender should perform this using the walking step. The left foot should be brought backwards to receive the left men kirikaeshi, and the right foot backwards to receive the right one. The same kirikaeshi is carried out for the do. Remember to keep your left fist on the vertical plane while striking the left and right do. Strike horizontally and keep your left side closed. The kirikaeshi should be performed sharply and diagonally, as if trying to cut off the elbow of the opponent. This practice involves successive strikes of either men front, men left, men right, or men front, men right, men left. The technique is called kirikaeshi with 3 striking zones, as it involves the kirikaeshi of 3 different men strikes in one move. Be sure to make large sweeping motions to strike the left and right men. Only the forward movement is performed here on screen. However, the same techniques can be applied to the backward movement. This technique involves jumping on the spot whilst performing the kirikaeshi. Raise the shinai overhead when you land, and then hit the opponent when jumping up. By making large and swift movements, you will be able to develop your coordination. There is also a technique to strike the left and right men without receiving the kirikaeshi with the shinai, as shown here. For this maneuver, using the jumping kirikaeshi technique for men, do strikes, the key points here are flexible shoulder joints and properly turned wrists. This technique involves a repetitive kirikaeshi whilst cornering a quickly retreating defender. There are 2 varieties of striking. Firstly, hitting the left and right men, and secondly, striking a blocking shinai. Here, the distance is small due to restrictions in location, but in actual practice situations, you must chase quickly over long distances while performing the kirikaeshi. Kirikaeshi has many variations and is fundamental to all other techniques. It should, therefore, be learned and practiced thoroughly. The purpose of the strike practice is to strengthen the force of the datotsu. For this practice, make sure to complete the designated number of strikes without breathing and full concentration for each one. Here, we see 2 big strikes and 2 small strikes for each striking point. For the front men strike, be sure to advance with a short range step with your right arm fully extended before spinning left. This is the kote strike. The defender turns the shinai from the bottom upwards to enable the strike to take place. The attacker strikes from above, as with the front men strike. Never strike diagonally. The shinai should bounce back naturally, with its tip angled to the left. Here, the attacker closes in on the defender at the end of the strike. But it is possible to slide out with short-range footwork to strike again, as with the men's strike. This is the right do strike. Here, two variants are shown. The first involving passing the opponent on the right side, and the second on the left. To pass on the right, make sure your right arm is fully extended when passing. Whichever direction you decide to pass in, make sure to bend the wrists and strike from the front once you have turned to face and not whilst passing. The left do is normally called the gyakudo, opposite do. Although in the chudan stance, the gyakudo rarely opens up. It is an effective move when facing an opponent who uses the mitokoro yoke technique. Therefore, it is recommended that you incorporate this into your strike practice routine. As this is a hikigiri, retreating strike, the finish should be performed once retreated. It is also important to fully swing through. It is incorrect to open the left side or lean back when swinging, turn the wrist to avoid a horizontal strike, and swing through in one smooth movement from upper right to lower left. The tsuki is not practiced by elementary or junior high school students, but from high school onwards. It should be incorporated into the practice routine by returning to the chudan posture after each tsuki. You will be able to link smoothly into the next. Performing the tsuki in an upwards direction is dangerous. Control the tip in a downward direction from above. It is important to do the maneuver in one smooth motion without any abrupt stops. For repeating strikes, the defender should take a step back to receive large strokes and stay in the same position for small strokes. The attacker should advance without straying to left or right. On the screen, a rightward movement is shown, but the attacker should move to either side in accordance with the defender. Kote-do can be struck from left or right, but here only the left is shown. If, after striking the kote, the left foot overtakes the right, and there will not be enough space for fully swung do strike. As a general point of note for all repeating strikes, it is important to study the position of the left fist and draw in of the left foot swiftly. This is especially important if performing the men strike in rapid repeating motions. As with an unsteady fist, you will not be able to strike fully. Practice this using fumikomi ashi only if at first you feel uncomfortable with the combined method. To move the do strike from the kote or men, it is necessary to smoothly move the pivot point of the body. Most people with fast striking motions will keep the same pivot point. Like on the screen, if you pass on the left, swiftly move the pivot point to the right after striking the men to provide balance, then move in for the next hit. If you lose your balance after the tsuki, you will not be able to move in for a successive men strike. It is important to pull your shinai back quickly after each tsuki. It is also important to use the back to carry out a firm tsuki. It might be easier to aim at the chest, munetsuki, first when you start to practice the tsuki. From here, the sandan-uchi triple combination strike will be demonstrated. Unlike the nidan-uchi double combination, this is a rarely used skill both in practice and in competition, but it is not important to ensure that the same posture is held for each and every strike. This should be included into the practice routine for improvement of coordination. The kote men do is one of the difficult repeating strike among sandan uchi. It should be practiced so that each of the 3 strikes is fully and correctly swung. As with the men do, the pivot point of the body should be moved to the side. The main point for smoothly carrying out combination moves lies in the relaxing of the right hand. If the grip remains firm, it is impossible to control the strike well. If you find this difficult at first, practice it through kukan datotsu. Practice until you can hit 3 continuous men strikes smoothly. From here, the yondan uchi quadruple combination strikes will be demonstrated. The hitting zones of the kote and men are divided into upper and lower parts, so after the first kote men strike, it is necessary to fold the arms back. You should learn to use your right shoulder, elbow, and wrist joints flexibly and smooth. When performing the kote men do men quadruple strike, it is difficult to maintain good balance because of the do strike involving a diagonal swing. It is important to steady the position of the left fist and keep a straight back while striking. The ability to perform this quadruple combination strike is a good indication of advanced shinai control technique. Here, the stomping footwork for performing hikiwaza will be explained. The basic movement is to flick up the left foot when the right foot lands on the floor, as shown on the screen. Then land the left foot behind you and retreat with the body. Let's see this movement in conjunction with a strike. When the right foot stomps on the floor, the men is hit. Following this, when the left foot lands, use your back to point the sword tip straight into the ceiling and retreat the body. The space between you and the opponent can be adjusted by changing where you land your right foot. As a basis, you land on the same spot every time, but this can be adjusted by half a step forward or back. The landing position of the left foot can also be adjusted. Recently, it is common for a strike with the incorrect stomping footwork to be judged as invalid, so this method must be learned properly. Observe the strike practice of hikiwaza. There are 2 large strikes and 2 small strikes. For hikimen, the strike should use not just the hands but also the shoulder joints. After the strike, point the shinai vertically at the ceiling. If the sword tip leans backwards, you have pulled it back too much, and you will be in a weak position if the opponent advances at you. Retreat to a sufficiently distant position so the opponent is out of reach, and in this position return to the Chudan Zanshin posture. A female high school student will demonstrate the same hikimen. Having the opponent advance at you, it will be a good practice for retreating your feet. For the hikigote, use your palms to let the shinai tip bounce back naturally after the strike. At this point, the sword tip should be angled away from you to the left, but the left fist should be in the same position as in the chudan posture. If the shinai is pointed backwards, you will not be able to counter the advances of the opponent, so be careful not to pull it up excessively. When retreating after a hikido strike, it is basic to retreat keeping the striking position. Bend the wrists, use the reverse side of the tsuru, the mono uchibu, to firmly strike the right abdomen. It is thought that when performing the hikido strike, it is easier to control the shinai if the left hand does not move up to meet the right. When retreating, be careful not to lean sideways or backwards. For hikigyakudo, raise your sword straight up and swing down diagonally. Never strike horizontally. Even when striking with a small stroke, make sure it does not become a lousy strike. This is different from the right-sided hikido that you must swing through fully while turning the wrist from your upper right to lower left. Keep the same posture when you are retreating. You should look past the right shoulder of the opponent when retreating, but make sure your body is facing forward and not to the side or back. Also, do not let your left side open up when striking. This is a double combination, hikiwaza strike. On the screen, two varieties are shown. One with large, careful swings for every strike, and quick, small movement strikes without pauses. The second type is rare in real situation, but it is useful for practice routines as it develops coordination. When striking a hikido after a hikimen, it is important to move the lifted body back down immediately. Swiftly move into the do strike after pulling back from the men. For both maneuvers, the correct body shape should be strictly made. This is an example of combining the hikimen strike with the gyakudo. As with the men-do strike, smoothly maneuver your body from the up position to the down. Then strike. Be careful not to hit the gyakudo with a horizontal strike. The main points when moving from a hikimen to a hikikote are bending the arms and keeping a gentle and flexible grip. After the men strike, the arms are raised, and from this position, fold the arms into the position to strike down on the kote. For the kote strike, it is important not to bang on, but to use the palms to hit the kote sharply. To move from the hikido to hikimen position, the body must be switched from the down position to the up. You should not hit the men diagonally, but instead bend the wrist and strike from directly above. This is an gyaku-do-men combination example. As you must swing through the gyaku-do, the movement pattern is more complicated than a hikimen following a right-do strike. This is a triple combination hikiwaza strike. Two varieties are shown, one with a series of full swings and one with short and sharp repetition without pauses between the strikes. No matter how many times you strike, the power of each swing should be identical. Practice this so that you can hit as many times as possible with the same power and control. For the men-do-men, maneuver your body from the up position to down, then from down to up. Tense your body so that the pivot points remain constant. This is the shape for tai-atari. Collide with the opponent so that the middle of the handle hits the center of the drum part of the do. The positioning of the tai-atari should not be too high. If so, you will not be able to do it powerfully, and there is a danger of injuring your back or losing your balance and falling over. The shinai should not be held straight up vertically, nor should it be horizontal. In this case, the tai-atari will be ineffective and you will not be able to move into your next maneuver swiftly. The left fist should be fractionally moved to the left from the chudan grip, and the sword tip should be angled away from you to the right. Let's see it from the side. The armpits are pulled in and the wrists straightened up. The height of the left fist is much the same as in the chudan posture. Do not hold the shinai from the side as the tai-atari may fall apart. An accident such as getting your thumb wedged between the shinai and the do may occur. Next, the basic practice procedure of the tai-atari will be shown. Stand about 1 meter apart facing your opponent, and each starting from the right foot, collide into each other. If the tai-atari is performed with the arms straightened in front, thrust forward or the waist held back, or if at the moment of collision you pull back or thrust your head forward, it is incorrect and also dangerous to make sure to perform this technique with a correct posture. When doing the tai-atari, the collision should be directed from down to up, with the waist thrusting forward and upwards, and not the other way around. In this way, you will be able to put maximum force into the tai-atari, thereby disrupting the opponent's balance and often creating an opportunity for further strikes. This is a technique involving a center men strike followed by a tai-atari. Two variants are shown, either large, careful strikes and quick, sharp strikes should be learned. After stepping in with the right foot to strike, collide with the next short-range step. People who has a bad habit of letting the left foot overtake the right directly after stepping in will not be able to perform a correct tai-atari, so be careful of this. Collide after returning to the basic posture naturally after the men's strike. This is a kote strike followed by a tai-atari. If the kote strike is a lousy strike without using the whole body, a proper tai-atari cannot be performed. There is no variant of this maneuver with a large strike. The tai-atari with two stomp steps is difficult, both in terms of skills and balance, but it should be thoroughly practiced so that the collision is done properly. Swiftly perform the hiki-men strike directly after the tai-atari. The reflex reaction from the tai-atari is translated into the force for the hikiwaza, so do not lose any moments when performing the tai-atari. If the defending party retreats after the tai-atari, the attacker cannot follow with the strike. Therefore, at the moment of collision, the defender should also take a step forward and collide correctly. Female participants are especially prone to shying away from this sort of contact, but the tai-atari is a fairly common maneuver in competition as well. People who can charge well can gain considerable advantages in match situation, so be sure to practice this repeatedly. When the opponent's balance has been disrupted by a tai-atari, they will often try to protect the men and raise their arms. Taking advantage of this and moving into the hikido is a practically standard combination move in competition. If the opponent has a habit of mitokoro-yoke, they will often perform the mitokoro-yoke when a tai atari is received. For such opponents, the gyakudo is effective after the tai atari. Here is an example, so try practicing it. The kote strike after the tai atari must be performed compactly in a small movement. From the tai atari position, use the elbows and wrists to deliver a controlled blow. Tai atari is also effective when you feel your opponent will use kaeshiwaza, returning strike, against your kote strike. After a men strike, if the opponent is standing in the same position, you move into a hikiwaza. But if they move to the right, as shown when passing, turn back around and perform a hikiwaza. This is what is known as a mawariwaza, or spinning move. Adults do not often use this technique, but for older school children, this is practically a necessary maneuver. The mawari men is a technique which involves no body contact. When your left shoulder passes the defender, use your right foot as a pivot to spin to the left and strike with a hikiwaza. It is incorrect to make contact as shown here. For example, if you perform a kote men strike and pass your defender on the right, use your right foot as a pivot to spin right and thus complete the mawariwaza. This is the most popular mawariwaza. Practice it so that, after passing the defender, you can strike with the same speed as before. The men mawari do is more difficult to perform correctly with power, for you must spin more than men mawari men. Do not try to spin with just the upper body, but tense the entire body and spin around from the waist. The men mawari kote is performed by bending the arms into a compact shape and hitting the kote after passing the opponent. Practice it thoroughly so that the hikikote can be executed with sharpness.